Alright, I got the Thompson Center Arms black powder rifle. I did a video a while back about a repair I did on this plunger. It had corroded into the receiving hole here, and I had to drill the back side of this and punch it out and put it back together. But I had a request about the disassembly of the trigger and the lock mechanism. So, I've never had a request before, and I wanted to show how this comes apart. So the first thing I'm going to say is before you start taking things apart, especially these little screws, they make a kit that is a gun specific screwdriver set. And all these little tips on these screwdrivers have a different bevel on them than what your standard hardware screwdrivers have, and there's a large range of sizes. You should have one of these kits. They're not very expensive, but you should have one of these kits before you start turning screws on these black powders, because it will stop you from tearing up the heads on the screws. Alright, so first is the set trigger. There's one screw in the back that holds it down. The brass trigger guard is what holds the front down. That's how it comes out. Now, as far as taking this apart, I've got no conceivable reason why you would want to take this apart. All right, unless it's all corroded up inside of here. Polishing the trigger can be done right here from the top without taking it apart. So there's no reason to take it apart, but I'll explain it to you anyhow. There's a screw right here in the back that takes a 7/64 Allen wrench. You take that screw undone, this spring pops off. You knock these two pins out right here, the triggers come out. But like I've said, I can think of no reason to take this apart. I will point out to you there's an Allen screw here on the bottom, and that screw adjusts the travel and the tension on this rear trigger. All right, the rear trigger is what sets off your gun. That's what pushes the sear up on the lock. All right, so you want good tension on that all the way through the travel, but it doesn't have to be a lot of tension. It just has to be enough tension to trip the sear. On the front, there's a little screw right here. This little screw right here adjusts the sensitivity of your set trigger. All right, you turn it in, it gets real sensitive, and you can turn it in to the point that you can't hardly breathe on this without thing going off. So you want to be real cautious about how sensitive that trigger is. All right, but the set trigger locks the rear trigger in. When you pull it, the back trigger pops up. Let me turn this way so maybe you can see it this way. You see that pop out? All right. And there's a little spring up here, and it's just stuck in a hole. It'll come out when you take the whole thing apart. There again, I highly recommend don't take this apart unless you're corroded up where you need to get in here and underneath things to clean it up. Otherwise, just take a little oil, put a little oil on it, on the hinges, put a little oil on the spring. We're going to call that good. All right. As for the lock, this plate right here on the top is what holds the entire thing together. All right. When you take this plate off, there's one little piece right underneath here you don't want to lose, and then you're going to have this little plunger here. When you take the sear out, that plunger will want to come out. So we'll take these two screws off at the top here. Alright. That's the plate that holds the entire mechanism together. Alright. So what you want to do is put a little finger tension on this. Alright. and work that sear out. Keep in mind when that sear comes out, that little plunger is going to want to come out too. So there's the sear, there's the plunger and the spring that goes with it, and this little part right here, what that does, that allows the sear to skip over this safety detent when you're firing the gun. If you don't have that little piece, if you lose this, okay, last time I took this apart, I dropped that little piece. It took me 6 minutes on the floor crawling around to find it. If you don't have that, the gun will never fire. All right. The last thing to come out is this compression spring right here. And this is just a matter of getting a good grip on it. I got a little pair of needle nose pliers with the tip that gets around them. Grab hold of it, pull it forward just a little bit there, and you're out of the detent. All right, that's the spring is out. Now the last thing you can do to take this apart is take the retaining screw off the hammer, and you'll want to pry around this base because the hammer's on there pretty tight. All right, I don't have a reason to take the hammer apart. All right, mine is nice and free. I can put a little oil on it. I got good movement in mine. If you got corrosion, if that's why you're wanting to take this apart, you take this screw out, take a screwdriver, and just work your way around this. And it'll take, I don't know, it'll take 5 or 10 minutes because it's hammered on there tight. When you put it back together, put it back together, hammer it down. You got to bang that in there. Once you get it all put back together, put your retaining screw in there. All right. Now, as far as putting this back together, all right, I'm gonna put a little oil right here on the guide hole. You're gonna grab the spring around this little shaft, slide it forward, get it in the detent. All right. Work the hammer a little bit, make sure you got it in the detent. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put this little spring and plunger back in, and the sear goes in here like this. And what you got to do, the same way you took it apart, is you've got to manipulate this hammer back to give you enough clearance to get it into the hole. Oh, come on now. Come on, wait. There we go. All right. So you see, it's kind of a combination of pushing this plunger up and getting this sear into the safety detent. All right. Now the last part, that little part, I'm gonna put a little dab of oil in there. This needs to go in there, and you'll see there's the safety catch right there. When you go, oh, I should have done that. All right. All right. We'll try this a little more finesse. When you pull this back, it ain't going to do it. When you pull this back, you'll see that little part jumps to the front. All right. And you'll see when you pull the sear, it's going to skip over that. All right, everything's under tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this plate back on here before it all flies apart on me. Oh, little screws and fat fingers. This is a bad combination. That's one. Come on there. What's happening is I got the sear, or this plate has got some tension on it. The sear's putting tension on this plate. It's making it hard to get that screw back in there. Don't cross thread it. Alright. Now friend, I don't know why you want to take that apart. But there it is. That's how it comes apart. That's how it goes together. Like I said, I would not take the set triggers apart. This you could take apart, but be careful. The spring here, you got a spring there. Everything's under tension. And like I said, it's not hard to have this thing fly apart. You lose pieces. You see I struggled with it. And I was kind of prepared for what I was doing. Don't lose this little piece right here. If you lose that, the whole lock is junk. You can't replace that. All right. Good luck, folks.